Righty. All right. So we are live. Everyone, you're tuning into Craigcast, the best in Web3, blockchain, NFT, and cryptocurrency technology. Great reviews, incredible interviews with some of the leading people in the Web3 ethos and just the general things Web3. Today, I've got a very special guest. So we are live, as I said, on X and YouTube. I'm with Joshua Howard, who is a senior associate at Redbeard Ventures. Josh currently manages $25 million fund while raising fund 2 at $50 million. They have over 8,000 LPs across AngelList and Echo. Can't wait to dive into that. Yep. 250 investments, including Layer Zero, Major League Pickleball's Texas Rangers, and Unstoppable Domains, fan-controlled football, Crawley Town, Canva, SpaceX, and a number of others. We will break down how these syndicates work and how everyday people like you and I can participate in early stage deals, and how Echo helps to unlock the top projects at the frontier of blockchain tech and AI. This conversation delivers real insight from a team backing builders of tomorrow. GM Joshua, how are you, my friend?
Good morning. Good morning. Excited to be here. Appreciate that. I want to acknowledge. So Drew Austin's the GP, and he's managing the Redbeard Ventures fund. I'm excited to have been able to contribute there. Excited to dive in.
No, me too. And, as I was diving through it, we'll touch a little bit later in the show on Denari Labs. And your goal is to raise the money, bring it in, help those projects to fit product to market launch, which Denari Labs being the incubator. Let's talk about, just to start off at a base level, what is Redbeard Ventures when you're explaining it to somebody who might not even be in this space? How would you break that down for them?
Yeah, well, I've spent time across larger VC funds, so 1 billion plus AUM funds, smaller funds. I've been a founder before, worked in policy a bit. So my perspective is sort of macro, but to distill it down, RBV is an investment house, right? So we have multiple vehicles. I'll call it 3. Really, it's 2 investment vehicles, and the fund supports our accelerator. So we have a fund, 2 syndicate platforms, and an accelerator program. We do our early stage investing out of the accelerator. We do 500K to 1.5 mil checks out of the fund. And any stage, any sector out of the syndicate that typically works as doing, like non crypto deals that are deep tech or sports tech, or doing crypto deals there that are typically going to be price rounds in a bit later stage.
Okay. I don't know. I like that. And when you think about the syndicate and the fund, I understand that the fund is sort of money that you're taking that's being managed. And then everyday people such as myself can go on to AngelList. And then I also do want to talk a little bit about Echo, because that's pretty exciting. Yep. And some of your deals are on these platforms. Can you kind of, in a simple way, can you talk to me about the fund first?
Yeah. So the fund, it's a traditional VC fund. We go out to high net worths, to institutions, to angel investors, et cetera, to fund of funds. And we go, get capital from them to manage. So we go raise, you can have, 25 high net worth institutions give you $1 million. You could have any distribution around that. But we're going to accredited investors and going to get capital to invest on their behalf. Goal is to 3 exit, 5 exit, 10 exit, right? So take that 25 million and, do really well on it. We make money on 2 and 20. So it's the standard investor fees. So 2% management fee over the life of that vehicle. And then we make money on the carry, which is 20% carry. That means your profits, right? So if you make $100,000, we get 20% of that. Our investors get 80% of that. So pretty straightforward VC fund. We've raised fund 1, and like I said, out raising fund 2 now. So excited about it.
That's fantastic. And let's talk a little bit about some of these projects, right? Because we talked a little bit about how somebody can enter in and maybe, and to simplify it. I haven't been onto AngelList yet, and I will after the show, because I'm curious. Sure. Here we are investing in the forefront of technology, and a lot of people are, when you look at kind of how the dollar's getting decimated. I'd love to get your insight on that, or what your thoughts are. And people are, where do they position their money for the future, for their family? And maybe talk to me a little bit about some of the some of the projects in the incubator, some of the things that you're working on. I happened to be in your space last week, and you did a great job in hosting and bringing out the best of, I believe, Lab, if I'm correct. Yep. Help me understand what projects really capture your attention and Drew's attention, because I think everybody at Redbeard Ventures and Denari work as a well-oiled machine. Help me understand some of these projects that you're working on.
Love it. So across each vehicle, we have specific focuses. I'll start with the accelerator because that was mentioned. So at the accelerator side, we're looking for top tier builders at the earliest stages, right? So we run those either having a general track, or we run those in partnership with ecosystems. So we ran 3 cohorts on cohort 4 now. Last cohort, we ran 4 tracks. So one was with Avalanche, one was with Zion, one was with Wire Network, which is an AI focused, essentially layer 0. It's an agent to agent payment network. And one with Faraway. Before that, ran a cohort with Flow, Cello, and Futureverse. So each of those ecosystems are looking for different things. The table stakes for us, the first thing we're looking for is, are we convinced on the thesis? And are these a team from a founder, product, and market perspective that we're looking to back? Right. And after that, sort of the second layer of diligence is the ecosystem fit. So the ecosystems, a lot of the time, are investing with us, usually splitting the check. They don't have to, but they certainly have the option to, or they can provide grants and other things as a part. And so for them, it's also, is this something that we'd be willing to, full force and full throatedly support? So there's been a really interesting mix. And, the interesting thing for us is, when that an ecosystem is supporting an early stage company, that gives you a whole bunch of alpha as an investor, right? And allows you to de-risk these early stage projects and really find them homes and ecosystems that need it. So for us, it's been a winning strategy. So the thesis can vary per ecosystem, but in general, we're looking for early stage companies, and we're underwriting most of the time the teams in the market. So that's the accelerator side. On the fund side and syndicate, those can be a little nuanced. The fund, I'd say, is the most selective. We're generalist by nature. I'm mostly interested in DEAI, DePIN, DeSci. Those are my 3 categories. So decentralized AI, decentralized physical infrastructure, decentralized science. But I certainly look across a number of ecosystems and a number of sectors. And then on the syndicate side, that's typically a follow-on check and some of the top deals going on in the space now. So you mentioned Lab. That's actually the second largest ROI deal now on Echo, which we'll talk about in a second. So that's at about 6x from when we got in. That deal was our first deal, actually. So started with the bang. We just closed Beamable, which is a backend infrastructure for game server hosting for both Web 2 and Web 3 games. They actually really focus on Web 2 games. To keep in mind, so we invested and that closed yesterday. AWS went out a week before, had an outage a week before, and Azure plus AWS had a second outage. So Azure is Microsoft's cloud hosting service. Yep. Azure and AWS had an outage yesterday as well. Like at the day we closed the deal, had outages that affected Roblox, all sorts of other games. So that's certainly not great for the teams, and certainly not great for folks affected, but really helps demonstrate sort of the alpha we're looking to take advantage of. We'll be hosting a space with them next week as well to dive through, but that's sort of the traction we're seeing on the Echo side. A lot of exciting deals, and we're going to keep churning on that end.
No, I love it. And it makes me want to just dive a little bit into Echo, because I feel like in the space that you guys are in, raising capital, hoping with the incubator to help these companies successfully launch. And then maybe we'll talk a little bit about, track record. The success is not even, I don't say that because there's shortcomings in this space. It's kind of like you mess around and you find out.
Right.
So, product to market fit and a lot of this stuff I don't say is like the next, when I look at technology like this of Web3, is it called Web3, is the next iteration of the internet. So everything being blockchain based, everything being AI infrastructure,
Yeah.
and people trying to grasp, we have these devices in our hand. I was saying this to the head dev from the Flow ecosystem, is they give us these phones and they call it smartphones. Well,
Right.
why do they call it smartphones? Because they make it easy for us to be able to operate and navigate the platform and have this really positive user experience. So the joke's on us when they give us something and say, hey, this is smart, probably smarter than us. When you think about Echo and it being acquired by Coinbase, how should people be thinking about Echo versus AngelList, and how do those two simultaneously work to benefit Redbeard Ventures?
Yeah. So one, we use both. So I'm very appreciative of both platforms. I'll start with AngelList. AngelList is the market leader and historically one of the most well-known syndicate platforms out there. Right. So that is more US focused to start, and so US and Europe. Second, that so both have similar approaches where you have to KYC before you join, you have to be an accredited investor to join, and have to verify your information, in order to invest in a deal. For us, AngelList has been historically our biggest community, and we've done crypto deals there. We've done, again, other sector deals there at all different stages. And it's been a very active vehicle that's ultimately getting investors access to top deals that it's very hard to get access to otherwise. So that has been an incredible sort of top of funnel tool for the founders, as well as something that allows individual LPs to diversify their funds with the help in DD of professional investors like us. Right. So the real benefit has been, one, the community and distribution, but two, the benefit to the founders themselves, where oftentimes they're able to get the kinds of folks that are, Wall Street guys, that are founders, that are high net worth or, family office folks, able to get them buy-in, right, in one vehicle where they're investing in. Now they're able to, maybe use the product or have a vested interest and help and grow the product. Right. So that's really a distribution engine. On the Echo side, I'd say it's very similar, and it's also a bit more Web3 native. Right. So there you're finding sort of that same ICP of LP, but these are folks who are, founders in crypto, right? Instead of maybe a VP at Salesforce or something, which would be on AngelList. So there's a real sort of, I'd say hats off to Kobe and what they've built. There's been a real strong penetration of the right kind of people from, Web3 native backgrounds on the Echo side.
No, I love it. And, when you look at for a new investor coming in and they're trying to figure out this entire space, I say you don't have to digest it in one day. Maybe we'll talk about some of the strategy of NBA Top Shot and sort of their burning strategy and their new and updated roadmap. I'm curious as some of the cryptos and things that you're in your own ecosystem. But when you look at someone that's going to come in and diversify their funds, right? Whether they have a REIT or they've got, or a Roth IRA or a SEP IRA. And, again, this just traditional way of saving money for the future.
Yep.
If someone was to come in the first day and they knew nothing, where would you tell them to look? What would you tell them to read? And how would you tell them first approach? Now, mind you, they're financially astute. They understand, they have some savings, but they need to diversify into this exciting space, and something about what's going on with you guys at Redbeard Ventures. What would you tell them to do?
Yeah. So look, I would say, if let's say you have some background in crypto or generally familiar, generally curious, you've been successful in other areas, and are looking to get some differentiation and exposure to crypto, I'd say one, try and be specific about what you're trying to hedge against or what your goals are. Right. So if you're looking to grow your portfolio, so these are risk on assets, right, then understand that's what you're getting into, right, in crypto. If you're looking to hedge inflation or, hedge losses in other areas or hedge certain risk in other parts of your portfolio, you can do that. You want to be pretty specific about the protocols and assets you're getting exposure to and why, if that's your goals with crypto. Now, specific stuff, obviously not financial advice, etc. General recommendations here. I'd say across us and how we can support. One, joining any AngelList syndicate or any Echo group allows you to see memos, to sometimes groups will host AMAs with these companies. In fact, we hosted an AMA for Beamable, the last deal, where you got 45 minutes to come on and talk directly to the founder. Joining either platforms, syndicate groups, that gives you differentiated access to DD companies, and at the minimum, you're able to learn. So I would say first, go learn, go read up on the companies before you invest, go understand the specific sort of thesis and problem that these companies are trying to solve. And if you believe, you could go look at the financials, et cetera, and see if you believe in the growth story and the trajectory of the company. That's one. I would say join the syndicate platforms first, go learn. And then second, consider if you're able to consider allocating a portion of your portfolio towards having managers, also trusted managers, invest the capital, right? Because this is what we do every day, and happy to talk about and support on that side. So I'd say one, go learn, go get your hands dirty. Two, look at hedging through getting the right expertise and getting exposure that way. If you're going to do direct investing, I would say a large portion of that, put it into some of the blue chips and direct assets. And then from there, if you have specific sort of direct investment you're trying to do, I would say start with keeping it in your wheelhouse. So if you were a sales guy, I would look at, growth tools in crypto. So folks who are doing clipping, to help do clips of YouTube channels, et cetera, or et cetera. These are protocols that are being built. If you were a finance guy, then that did credit,
Yep.
Look at Euler, look at Pendle, these sorts of protocols. So stay in your wheelhouse, and that will help you sort of hedge and understand where opportunity is.
No, I love it. Euler, Pendle. I'm just kind of writing down some of these because this is where the research is done. What you said, get your hands dirty. By the way, people that are tuning in today, it's a little bit of a slow morning, but we're okay. We don't stop the flow. We keep it moving forward.
Yep.
One of the things that I would say is you need to follow Joshua Howard. You need to follow Redbeard Ventures. You need to follow Denari Labs. I feel like in those, when you see a space notification coming on, I always hit it for the next day because I want to tune into spaces. I don't need 1 million people viewing. I need to have the information 5 years before. And that's how my mindset is around this entire space, is that it's patient. Because I remember in 2021, and I kind of want to flip the conversation in just a second about sort of your investment thesis as it concerns crypto, digital assets, i.e. NFT, non-fungible tokens. Gotta love that. But I do want to give the editor tip of the week. My Vic, who's running behind this, who's my editor, he says you don't need to have a perfect edit. You just need to post it. And I feel like people oftentimes, including myself, and you might be guilty of this possibly, is being a perfectionist. And you get to that point, your perfection. I need to get it perfect. I need to get that pitch perfect. I need to convince, and I want to talk to you a little bit about those venture dinners that you hold, but I need to make sure that I'm making the right impression and that this person really feels my passion around this company that Denari is incubating right now. And I want them to invest. And when you step back for a second, like if I just connect on a personal level, they're going to really feel what it is that I'm talking about. And they're either going to be excited about the opportunity or they're not. And I definitely want to talk about some of those dinners. I believe you hosted 3 this past year. You were sharing with me, but let's talk a little bit about your journey into crypto. When did you first get into DeFi and, get your first either hot or cold wallet? What was your first experience?
Yeah. So I started in 2017. I was a Coinbase guy. I onboarded via Coinbase. I had bought like 2 or 3 nano wallets back in the day. Had a bunch of Ripple at like a 10 cents or a cent or something that I lost. I can't even find the wallet anymore.
What?
Yeah, I was so sad about it. I had a good amount. I'm fine otherwise, but I got my bumps and bruises early. So for me, it was I was a finance guy early in my career, so I was in banking and, like I said, at other VC firms. And for me, it was I really believe, and still do, but truly believed in the democratization sort of function of crypto. But second, it was a really unique opportunity. You're still seeing it play out in real time. Super unique opportunity to see financial markets speed run and sort of economic history speed run right in front of your eyes. Like, in the 1950s, when you go back and look at stock market history, the returns of the stock market, the U.S. NICE and other trading venues, the returns there were very similar to crypto. All right, you had wide 100x, returns, and also crashes. Right, you had much larger spreads and volatility in the market, partially because the markets weren't fully mature yet. So when you have, I think it's 21 trillion or something stocks are traded a day, right? In terms of like actual trading volume, I think it's either 12 or 20 trillion daily, like globally.
Wow.
When you have that size, you're not going to see 10% or 20%, very swings in volatility on $20 trillion, right, of volume. Like you're not, you'll have very specific small market caps who might, do 20% or something in a day, or sometimes certain stocks do. But I'm saying the markets are a lot bigger and much more mature now. In crypto, you're able to test those economic theories you learn about and get a sense about early. So, okay, it is, how much should I consider a Sharpe ratio? Like, how do I hedge my risk? Like these sorts of things you're seeing in real time. So for me, it was like, this is the most exciting way to like be at the ground level of global financial systems being built. So I thought that was a much better place to spend my career, where I could take what I've learned from TradFi, get in early, and help really build, tools that benefit folks. I'll say, sort of in closing there, sort of emblematic of that is one of my first like favorite protocols was Goldfinch, which, if anyone remembers, back in the day, it was a lending platform where you're allowing small businesses to take out loans against, these are global, fintechs and other players who can take out loans, and you have like a protocol where there's a hedging function, and you have validators who validate the credit and do the DD in order to provide the company access to credit from the tool. Had a bunch of fixed income guys that came and joined and worked on it. It's like, I was a nerd in that way, and that sort of thing is not possible in TradFi. So I saw it as super compelling.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It made me think of Floaty, which is as it circles around NBA Top Shot, and really excited because I feel like, we all need this dopamine hit, right? I've got my coffee. We're always on social media. We're building or creating our brand identity. For me, it's about the interviewing and the connecting with my guests, which is most important to me. It's something that I'm passionate about, and learning a little bit about you and your history. And we'll maybe dive into a little bit on that. Again, we're about 9:40 on the hour. But when we think about it, NBA Top Shot just announced this new roadmap that's updated, and I'm going to be bringing two incredible guests on in December to really deep dive and kind of discuss the roadmap, the strategy, the burning, all of those things. But when I think about digital moments and NBA and the NBA Players Union being associated with that, built on the Flow blockchain, to me, that's really powerful. And these moments that were at one point thousands of dollars are dollars. And when I say $10, $20, $30 most, and you can really grab some things, and then you learn about the game. To me, that's really exciting. And then you have, for instance, Bored Ape Yacht Club. I guess they just came off of, there was a casino thing going on. I was just kind of checking it online, and one of the guys won. I think at the table. I don't gamble in that regard. I gamble enough, right? Sure. But as we break it down and we kind of look at it, with a lot of the PFP communities, they're having to strategize on how to create new experiences or new moments. Whereas those moments for NBA Top Shot and the accessibility through the Dapper wallet makes it so seamless, and it makes it easy for people to onboard who have accounts, who have Coinbase, right? We've got all these people. We need to bring people in the city, and then eventually slowly on-ramp them into Web3, which is what I call the new highway. And I feel like that experience, and I KYC'd, which is know your customer, for those that don't know. You did that a couple weeks ago into Dapper. I have the Flow wallet. You can connect both of them, but the moments are really powerful. And I feel like NBA Top Shot is one of those prolific collections. So I guess my question to you is, do you have any NBA Top Shot moments?
Oh yeah, of course. This is one of the things I was buying them back in the day as well. So I've held some, I forget, there's a bunch of rookie cards. I have some like Anthony Davis moments and some others. Obviously still a fan today. We're investors in Dapper, as mentioned, really going deep and supporting Top Shot specifically out of our consulting arm on the Denari side. So, for us, we're all in on Top Shot 1. So 2, I'd say generally thesis, when you think about like, why do people buy sports cards in general, like physical ones? Some of it, one is fandom, 2 is learning, right? And 3 is if you enjoy collecting and sort of that, but it's also sort of quasi an investment, right? It's something people are trying to, front run the market, kind of use game theory and figure out, okay, this is something I think this player would do well, i.e. I can capture a little bit of that attention and the value of this will go up in the next XYZ year. So I think doing that on chain is the next natural iteration of that. And it really allows you to go on and say, hey, this is a Cooper Flag moment, or this is a Bronny James moment, or, et cetera. I want to hold this for 4 or 5 years. If Dallas wins a championship or something like that, I'm expecting, that this will do really well. And so, shout out to NBA Top Shot and them focusing on new burn mechanisms and really trying to make sure that supply is managed of moments in order to drive up value for folks. I think that's the way to go. And there's a lot cooking, so won't say too much until they're ready to announce. But
it's exciting, and the feedback from some of the people in the community is that they're very it's a positive sentiment, right? Because when people invest at the top, right, and you're focused on it just from number, you might feel disappointed, but what they're doing, I mean, this past week, if I'm correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was like 424,000 moments were burned, which if in calculation, we've got about 45 million supply of digital moments currently. So it's about 0.9% of the overall supply that has been gone. I think it's a strategy, and then figuring out commons and rares and, legendary and all these different moments. But it's really exciting. And a reason I mention it is I want people to just draw an interest in it. Just like I want people to go and subscribe or go and follow Redbeard Ventures and the great spaces that you do. By the way, with your spaces, are you doing those weekly? For me, I'm doing these bi-weekly because after I come off with you, I'm preparing 2 weeks from now to have Scott Melker on. So I always want to make sure that I'm recognizing my guests and asking the right questions. For you, how frequently are you doing your spaces?
I'm doing typically bi-weekly. It's probably going to have to increase to weekly. There's a lot of demand coming. I'll say I also run a podcast. Recently I took over, so I'll say in a second, but took over the syndicate. Right. So he's again running the syndicate. And so that has been a lot of attention. So there's been an episode released. There's taken a lot of my attention. There's been an episode released in a few weeks. That's about to get a lot more active. So writing stuff, writing articles, podcasts, spaces, both personally and for Redbeard. These are, all things I do. The podcast is called Vested, right? So it's for Vested Media. And I run a couple over there. So I feel free to tune in as well.
Well, fine. Let's just dive into Vested Dinners. Tell me a little bit about that, because that's, obviously when you guys are running your funds and you're going to be managing quite a bit of money, right? You have the second round, which is 50 million. The first round was 25. People are putting a lot of trust behind that. So tell me about the Vested Dinners, those moments. I love, by the way, the editing that you guys did in the videos for that. It felt genuine and authentic, but it also showed these real relationships as people are putting their money, their hard-earned money, into the future of the new internet.
Yeah. So all of those, I have them up on my LinkedIn. They're on Twitter. So I have a Telegram group for that. That's about 220 of my friends and folks that I've met across the industry that I trust. These are all high net worths. These are LPs and CEOs of LPs in general. So not necessarily investors in our stuff, but in general. and CEOs of top DePIN, DEAI, DeSci companies. I mean, the thesis there. And again, this is something I do personally because I'm a nerd in a positive way. I like calling myself a nerd in that way because I'm a nerd about the space, and so I want to put a lot into the space. And one of the things I saw is that look, I want the top folks to be able to find each other easily, like to get above the fray and have your smartest people. I find the most serious people in crypto, I think, are in DeFi, sort of that hold for DeFi. That's sort of always the leader, in my opinion. After that, it's DEAI, DePIN, and DeSci. These are people who care about the physical world. So folks who are building hardware tools, who are trying to solve, drone detection problems, who are trying to build new phones, who are building consumer products or B2B products. Folks who are concerned with AI, you often find those are very serious Web 2 AI folks who are coming in naturally into crypto. And then third, DeSci, these are very serious scientists as well, especially at the top 1% of DeSci. So to me, it was like, look, I know a lot of these folks. If people want to cross collaborate across sectors or have smart people that they're associated with, I wanted to put it together. So I built a TG group for that. And then look, I'm an in-person guy. So the podcast and all that I run because I like talking to people and etc. But I also travel a ton for work, right? And so I'm usually on the conference circuit, right? And I meet a ton of people. And so I decided again, having a place where people with capital and have the know-how and the interest, getting them in the small area, small kind of dinners where we can collaborate, share, etc. And it can be a very high signal environment. I wanted to build that. So hosted 3 globally, hosted the first one in San Francisco earlier this year, hosted one in Lisbon at NFC, and hosted the third one in London. Each of those, I cap them. There's 20 people max. Usually, it's between 15 and 20. They're invite only, and we'll go in and we'll talk about the future of DEAI, DePIN, DeSci. So we'll have questions that I theme them very specifically, but we'll have, what categories within DEI or DePIN, DeSci do we think are going to hit 10 mil, in or have their first unicorn, right, come out of it. So questions like that, and have a team on the back end that will do some of the editing and all that you saw.
Talk to me about DePIN, DeSci. Kind of help me understand from a basic level what that is as people are tuning in on this.
Yeah. So DePIN, again, is decentralized physical infrastructure. Those are hardware builders. All right. So you have folks building compute platforms. You have folks building AI tools. Some of the bigger players are like Bitsensor. That's a very prominent ecosystem. I think is one of the most interested in crypto, especially from a tokenomics perspective. Like I said, but on the DePIN side, it's hardware, and DEAI is basically decentralizing the AI stack. So you have multiple stacks. You have the compute side, the data, the actual foundation models, and the inference. You have crypto players who are doing stuff in each one of those categories.
Yeah. By the way, I love the Tau token. So funny. I did educate myself on that. About a couple months ago, I got in, and then we saw the dip. But what I did was when everything kind of earlier this month, I just took my hands, I put them under my seat, and I said, okay, step back, because I feel like when you go through the first market and you're only thinking about number, you're left with sort of this feeling of, oh, it just didn't work, because you weren't patient, you weren't steadily investing, you were just, oh, this is going to go to. And it's like, but you knew nothing about the company. And I'd call my friend Josh and be like, Josh, what do you think? What do you think? And it's like, whoa, slow down. Like what you just said, right? Is you'll have this conversation of who do we think is going to be the unicorn? Who do we think is going to be the one that's going to really rise above the fray? And most of the time, you're probably going to be right. There's going to be sometimes it's like, we missed that mark. And it happens. How do you guys learn from, because we know about how you're learning from success because you guys are doing incredibly well. But when there's a shortcoming or a failure, I always say it's like you dust yourself off and you walk forward. What are some things that you as the team and the team recognize when there's a shortcoming? Is there sort of a group meeting? Do you guys come together and say, okay, we need to kind of avoid that? We know that it's part of life. What does that look like?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, look, failures are my favorite thing. This is something I'm preaching to my team all the time. Right. And the folks around. So failure is my favorite thing because it's very quick information that allows you to iterate and get better. Like my goal is to be one of the best VCs in the world, right? Specifically on these categories. And I take that very serious. Like that's why I get up every day and do what I do. So you have to fail so you can, get information and do better, right? So for us, I think I'll say one specific failure that we sort of try and hedge against. There's tons, but one is, especially at the early stage, your DD on a team matters a ton, like for an early stage company. So trying to figure out, does this founder understand how to raise, right, outside of us, right? Like, so how to go and rally around. Can they recruit the right people in order to get their sales engine and all that going? Do they, are they a hustler, right? Do they deeply understand the sector? Do they have some sort of, honestly, it's sort of whether it's a chip on your shoulder or some sort of, knack for navigating complex problems with unclear answers. That you have to hone in on that a lot. Like at the end of the day, you can try and DD a market or even a product. That stuff changes like by whim. Companies will pivot, etc. The most foundational level, you have to be trying to back the team, and that is a very like nuanced and deep process. And so you're learning stuff all the time on how to do that better.
No, I love that. I think it's important, right? He's like, you have these undefined problems like hustle. And, the fact is, by the way, I'm loving this conversation. I wanted to throw something out to you. I was thinking about
Sure.
In this space as content creators, we were talking about, I put the tips thing up on my X page, and what I thought about, and I just wanted to kind of bring this out into every stream that I do with every special guest. And by the way, I've really enjoyed this conversation immensely. Whether it's a coffee or a Lambo, we're gonna be taking 10% of the money that is tipped into the wallets. I have a Bitcoin wallet and the Ethereum wallet set up on the tip thing. And 10%, I'm going to be either feeding a family or buying clothes for a family. And 10%, some call it tidings in different religions. For me, I just feel like it's part of what I can do in this space as we continue to interview people who are really doing things that are incredible. I want people to follow Redbeard Ventures. And I do want to talk a little bit, and we talked about Echo, we talked about AngelList, and I think those are the things. Roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty. People, whoever's tuning in, who's not following Joshua Howard, I recommend that you do. He hosts great spaces. He's got his own podcast. But when you kind of like the landscape of it all, and you kind of like look at what Denari Labs is doing to help incubate, and I say a product to market fit, tell me a little bit about Denari Labs.
Well, look, I mean, shout out to Drew, and most importantly, just, person to person, like human to human. Like there's a vision there, where you're building vehicles that solve very specific problems in very specific sectors of the market. So on the syndicate side is, look, how do we get exposure to the top companies in the space consistently over time, regardless of where our fund is at and all of that. Second, out of the fund, it's how do you manage capital and grow it specifically, which could be both open market purchases like OTC deals and stuff and private deals. And then the accelerator is how do you get the earliest stage exposure and do that at a top level where the valuations are in line and all that. And so shout out there on having the vision to build each of those vehicles, right? But so on the Denari side, what we're looking to do and all that is we're looking to, like I said, get access to and continuously support the top protocols in this space, particularly around tokenomics. So we have a killer tokenomics team in-house, right? And so that's very differentiated from a lot of what other VC firms provide, having those people on payroll, right, who is their full-time job to do the tokenomics design, etc., of our portfolio companies, particularly on the Denari side. So one, that, and then bringing all the resources to bear to help companies successfully TGE. So helping them navigate who their market makers are, helping them navigate how much of supply you should distribute, what should your float be, at TGE, what exchanges are useful, and what are the different policies for each. What are the trade-offs when you don't list on a SEX and you list on a DEX instead, so a decentralized exchange instead of centralized ones. So all of that sort of to help manage TGE correctly. That's what we do there, plus tokenomics consulting. So the vision around that is be the premier place for tokenomics design. And we've seen, I think, first cohort, we may have had, I don't know, a couple hundred applicants. That's continued to grow. We had 520 or something applicants last cohort, and probably going to get more than that this cohort because we've just started. I think it's been 2 weeks ago. We have about 100 in, or 120 in.
Yeah, and I love how you said, like, so I think of that the social currency is the outer side of the car. It's beautiful. Everybody wants to get in the Lamborghini.
Yep.
But the engine inside is so incredibly important. And that speaks to the TGE, the tokenomics. And again, what you just said, if you list it on a centralized exchange, or are you only accessible by a DEX? And it's short. I don't want to say it's short-term think. The long-term thinking is you guys, especially Denari Labs, is really building an infrastructure that will last the test of time, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Because what we're doing here with the new iteration of the internet, right, and everything becoming tokenized, at what point do you think more people are onboarding into this space? When I say the general public, we call it the normies. When do you think that takes hit? What year are we looking? Do you think?
I mean, I think there's always a lot of FUD on CT. Look, I think we should really appreciate the scale at which I think developers are leaving sort of crypto and all that right now. There's narrative around that, but in general, we should appreciate the scale at which crypto has gotten. Like the narrative has quickly, especially in TradFi, has quickly. This again, you're speed running financial history. So like in the grand scheme of the trajectory of crypto, the narrative has quickly flipped from this is a toy and this is something we should disregard to most of the growth in a lot of the growth in finance and even fintech comes through crypto now, and core innovations like stable coins. There's real legitimacy on Capitol Hill for bills to be created. You have institutions who want the assets, who want the assets that were generated by code, like understand what's happening in terms of in terms of financial history. So in the grand scheme, the assets themselves are very legitimate relative to 2017 or 2012, extremely legitimate, and it's trending in the right direction there. On the consumer side, this is a roundabout way. I'll try and see.
You're good.
But on the consumer side, I think consumers lagging a bit, but again, there's real unique stuff. Like, for example, what's going on in Abstract right now. So Abstract ecosystem, the chain, which was launched by Luca Nets and the Pudgy guys.
Yep.
Folks like, ecosystems like that and others. Again, there's a company we invested in called X-Force. They're building a DePIN phone, right? And they're shipping this quarter, right? And investors through our AngelList group get a free phone with investing, right? So these sorts of consumer builders, one, folks are taking it serious, they're taking the craft serious, but second, you're seeing real flywheels that are being built that's just like not possible in traditional gaming, that's not possible in traditional consumer apps that folks are taking advantage of, and you're seeing like the bar being raised. So as much as there's FUD, I'd say third in the category to look at. This is something I think we've been late on, but prediction markets, that's a direct consumer play as well.
Oh yeah.
Not only that it's gone viral in crypto, like in the bubble that is crypto and sort of the crypto universe, it also is allowing folks to, engage with the product that's easy to understand, where you can abstract away crypto rails and get transactions on chain, but at the front end is very easy to understand. Those sorts of categories, like that's happening in real time. As much as people may not see like meme coin prices go up or like their NFT holdings on the game or something go up, the adoption is happening. Yeah.
It was funny because Drew was on a stream yesterday, and there were a couple of things that he said. He talked about how OpenSea could be doing it better, opening packs, and he talked about sort of that user experience. But I'm kind of agreeing with him. Like, I love memes. Okay, I've done a lot of content around memes. Not like, oh, if you don't get this, Joshua, you're a brokey. Like, right. you're silly if you don't understand that you should have Pepe in your portfolio. Great, I think you should. But all that to be said, I agree that there was such a better feeling with NFTs than there is with memes. And I love memes. Okay. So it's kind of funny in this space. It's sort of, you say something, everybody's like, oh, FUD. And I still believe in Land Wolf and some Pepe and the Boys Club meta. I love
Yeah.
that. But I
Yeah,
felt
yeah.
so much. There was something to connect with an on-chain monkey, or I think I
Yeah.
got it behind me. Which one? Right there. The ENS Maxis. I love that stuff. It was fun. It was engaging. And by the way, right now, and I think this is kind of the interesting thing, and I do want to talk to you a little bit about DeSci. But when you're not focused, when you're not following necessarily the meta and you're kind of doing your own thing, I'm quietly collecting certain ordinals, certain NFTs quietly. Not at high prices. I'm not trying to grab the trending top 10. You know, everybody was freaking out because Bored Apes are now around 6.5 ETH, and a Mutant Ape is a little below an ETH, and everybody's like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. No, these are blue chip collections, and that they solidified it in 2021. And when things, you know, kind of went right off the cliff, people were kind of like, okay, well, what's going on? Build back these experiences. If you can grab a blue chip and you know that it's a qualified blue chip and you like the community and you enjoy the spaces, there's nothing wrong with that. Let's talk about DeSci. You know, how do you break that down for someone who's listening in?
Yeah. So DeSci is decentralized science, and it's a category where folks are looking to either, like, usually it's going to be around research and getting exposure to research. So it's either going to be authenticating research, making research more credible, or being able to invest through unique vehicles to get access to new products that are being built, you know, et cetera, all on crypto rails. So the thing that sticks out to me are the founders in those categories. These are scientists, these are researchers, these are hardware folks, et cetera, who are trying to understand, how do I fund research, or how do I use the primitives of Web3 to authenticate data, get access to data, lower my costs when I'm providing some sort of research. So the category is nascent for sure. But again, I want to interest myself in who are the smartest people in the space coming through to try and build things that impact real, you know, real people. And so you're seeing, and so you're seeing very serious spine research folks who are coming on and building DAO communities, who are the DAOs themselves are then launching products. You're having scientists from Web 2 who are coming in and trying to contribute, you know, like building tools that help folks at the research level, you know, have authenticate their data from the very beginning of research. So not at the end, but like verifying the inputs into research. So those sorts of folks, I think, are doing the serious work that the space needs.
Are there companies right now in DeSci, not to try to put you on the spot, but just, are there companies that people, like when you say get your hands dirty, roll up your sleeves, that's honestly a meta I haven't really looked into. Are there a couple companies that I should just be reading about?
Yeah, I'd say VitaDAO, SpineDAO was the one I mentioned. That's by Chalier. He's based in France. SpineDAO. Yeah. Okay. You have Sei is also a pretty big proponent of DeSci. They have folks at Sei SEI network. They have a group of folks who do DeSci focused investing and support at the protocol level. There are a number of ecosystems. I'd say DeSci London as well is one of the biggest DeSci groups in the world. Those folks will have, so Causality Network is one where the founder of DeSci London, that's his project. The you know, I would say dive in, learn from some of those ecosystems, and see what serious work is going on.
I think the real gains happen, and I'm curious to see if your opinion, and I just want to talk to you a little bit more about DePIN. I think the real gains happen when it's boring, when it's not exciting. I mean, you know, I'm sure like you, we've put, you know, a bunch of money behind a JPEG or into a meme. And you want to see these communities grow and build, and you thought overnight, instantaneous gratification, the dopamine hit. But I think it's really about, you know, as my 4 words are plot, plan, strategize, implement the next moves. So I always think from my end, I think I have average intelligence. I'm a decent communicator. So when I ask these questions, it's really because I want to dive in, and that's why I opened up the stream. Talk to me a little bit about DPIN, what companies should we be reading about? Where should we be focusing our attention? Because obviously I'm going to be tuning in a little more carefully to your podcast. And then also the biweekly X Spaces that you're going to be hosting eventually, probably weekly, like me.
Yeah. So DPIN is fascinating. One, Beamable, I think, is one of the best DPIN protocols in the space, and that's by revenue. They're not live yet, but you'll be able to see their sort of on-chain transaction purchases to verify the revenue. They should be one of the highest valued based on revenue, one of the highest valued in the space. There's been a history of DPIN where, usually it's around compute. So you'll have like a cache network. There's a bunch of Bittensor ecosystems like Shoots and others who are doing DPIN protocols. Usually it's going to be around compute and things like that. So that's providing access to GPUs. And the DPIN side is getting the actual incentivizing the physical hardware to be on chain, right? So doing token rewards to get folks to provide their GPUs connected to the network, and then people can use the inference on the GPUs. So those are compelling, but also there are tools like GeoNet is one to look into. So that's GeoDNet. One project I like is called Gargoyle. They're building drone detection software. So literally you buy a device, you put it on your roof, and you can see, because drones are starting to become more prolific, you can track, you put them in, a community can buy them, right? So like you can buy them anywhere. As many people that buy them, you can then use that as a network to map, okay, if a drone comes through my neighborhood, it's been tagged in some other region. Is this friend or foe? Is this a drone I should be worried about, et cetera? Like those sorts of tools, that's where I think the interest in hardware is in the space. So that's why I'm excited about DPIN.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. I feel it just reminded me of the book George Orwell, 1984. I don't know what it is that at 48 years of age, I was never like an avid reader, but every day at least 1 hour a day is dedicated to reading, highlighting, going back, and it just made me think about that friend or foe when it comes to a drone. Yeah, I hear you. Are there any more blimps in the sky? I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Bitcoin, and I'll share my strategy and how I'm looking at it now is I look at everything in sats when it comes to Bitcoin. I'm not focused on if the price of Bitcoin is 108,000 or if it's 120. I don't care. What I care about is purchasing sats. And everybody, I think in our space is kind of like, okay, is Bitcoin going to hit that 107 mark? And then is it going to go below? And then are we going to see this altcoin season pop off? I have to be honest. I don't really care because the things that I hold, the communities that I'm a part of, meme, digital asset, NFTs, NBA Top Shot, big shout out to them and the Flow ecosystem. But my Bitcoin strategy is just a little each and every week. It could be $25. It could be 100, whatever it is. It's not crazy. Do you have a Bitcoin strategy or a crypto strategy that you can share at like a base level that doesn't say, here's the inner workings?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think if you're watching price, like there's a time and a place to watch price action. To me, that's around entry point, unless you're DCAing. Right. But beyond that, Bitcoin itself is a hedge on, at least now it's being treated as, and part of that is narrative. It's a hedge on inflation and it's a hedge on financial access. So it's my assets that I can take anywhere. Again, for me, I feel this materially because I'm crossing border crossings all the time. And I don't want to have to notify my bank every 10 seconds on, can a card be, accessed XY, in a different place or something like that when I swipe. So for me, one, having access to your capital is incredibly important, but then second, not having it influenced by monetary policy, or not as much by monetary policy and things like that. Right. That is increasingly becoming an important thing that companies, that governments are all trying to hedge, and there aren't very many tools out there to hedge against monies that have a claim on the other side, right? So one, acquiring sats to me is a long-term view at how much control do I want to have over my finances, and how much exposure do I want to have to global financial services, so these DeFi tools and other things. So to me, it's a DCA strategy, and I'm looking at it as where am I taking dollars which are restricted and converting them to a more unrestricted asset?
Yep.
You know, so
Brilliant. No, brilliant. And let's talk a little bit about, and I try to lightly touch it because I'm very, I want to say apolitical, but I want to talk about it in the realm of crypto, right? We have this
yeah,
administration that loves crypto and all these, I think, benefits for crypto in general. 3 years from now, when this administration's out and maybe there's a new administration in, what positive changes do you think will be made to crypto overall? And what have you seen that you like as far as it concerns crypto? I just want to be specific with that.
yeah, for sure. I mean, again, specifically in crypto,
Yeah.
I think this administration is going to like inculcate crypto in the US. So I think they're going to do more to advance the crypto industry than any other administration. And I think that's going to have lasting effects, right? You're not going to have 3 years of crypto adoption, more policies being passed and things like that, and crypto recedes after the administration. You can certainly try and, you can certainly have adversarial political actors who try, but I think after this administration, you're going to have a real inculcation of crypto as a legitimate asset in the US, which then makes it legitimate globally.
Yeah. And by the way, in just speaking on crypto, just want to be clear for our conversation. One of the things the last administration didn't even want to look at it. They almost scoffed at it.
Yeah.
So
and that's a mistake.
That was a big mistake. Okay. So I think agree. I want to talk a little bit about, do you have the Flow wallet? I just wanted to chat with you about that.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. I love Kitty Punch. I love what they're doing. I love the FIVX token, Froth. They've got some of their own memes on there. Yep. I like how that DEX is really friendly. And funny enough, I've been playing with store.flow.com, earning the points through keys and boxes. Love the strategy early on, but that's the thing, right? For me, I want to be where it's fun and exciting and there's a community that's passionate and really talented builders on Flow. I interviewed, I think almost 2 years ago, I actually reached out to Will. We'll have at some point, probably have him on the stream from Cryptoys, but I love what they're doing and how they're taking the Fizz digital and they're combining them into a powerful user experience. I don't want to say like my son comes home, Dad, I want the iPad. Slow down. But we know that technology is coming and how kids are going to play and engage and interact with toys. And to know that a lot of incredible things are being developed and designed on Flow and how fast and easy those transactions are and how it has 2 VMs, Cadence and the EVM. It's just really so cool to learn all of these things and to take your time and what a lot of things that you said. I love your view on the DCAing around Bitcoin and that strategy and understanding or recognizing from the standpoint of this administration, how it is a net positive to crypto and how each administration, whether left or right, you guys need to be thinking about it for your voters, because I think that's a really important thing.
I want to go back to the policy point a sec. One, give a shout out to, because I'm a policy guy, so I study, so I listen to foreign policy podcasts all the time. Read reports from think tanks and all that like that. That's my world, man. But I'll say, so one, shout out to Kitty Punch, right? That's another investment of ours. That I
didn't know that, by the way.
That is done fintech. They actually went through the last cohort of the accelerator, or the cohort before, actually. So 2 cohorts ago. The biggest DeFi protocol on Flow, kind of bar none, and is doing a fantastic job there. Shout out to, that's another team. That's another place where you have to DD the hustle of the team, and that team ships. They ship like a MFer. They are launching all the time, and that's something you have to try and optimize for. So on the policy point, it'll be quick. I think
you're good.
So, but just to reiterate again, from a strictly crypto perspective, I think it's a mistake. It's a mistake to try and halt money that people are. There's a history of like banks issuing their own monies in the early 1800s and in early parts of the 18th or 19th and 20th century. There's been a history of monies competing, and you definitely need to have a sovereign currency, right? And there's all sorts of benefits
Absolutely.
for an economy. But it's a mistake to try and prevent assets where people are trying to hedge specific risks. Like that is a mistake. And second, as these tools become more adopted,
Yep.
these tools are consistently taking inflows in from TradFi, and they become an extension. I think the strategy of previous administrations has been to try and prevent the on ramps, right? So like choke the Operation Choke Point, all that stuff we can get
Yeah.
into, but essentially create issues around on ramps and off ramps, which then slows down adoption. Um, the mistake is these tools are providing, they don't have to be a shadow banking sort of tool. It can be something that adds to the dynamism of a financial system. And when a financial system is not looking for dynamism or dynamic, so in other words, not trying to be dynamic, that's when you start receding, and you don't want that. So,
No, I love that. And, I did want to talk a little bit about RWA. Quick shout out because Beezy is on
mhm,
the Flow Network. And what's really cool is you can pull the claw. You can get these RWAs that are locked up physically from Brinks. They have the Brinks Vault. So there's a lot
yeah,
of really cool things going on in Flow, and the participation and engaging with that ecosystem I found through store.flow.com. And you're able to reach out selfishly as an investor of this space, a light investor. It's been a lot of fun to have these behind the scenes conversations to understand how this tech works. And then obviously have that foresight for the long term to understand how to protect your
mhm,
assets, how to
mhm.
keep safe in this space and how to do it in a great way. RWAs, I love BZ. What are any RWAs from your end that you're enjoying?
Yeah, so it's funny. I'm not as much as an RWA guy, but I think people use the term liberally or in different ways. So I'll clarify. I I'm curious, and I put an open invite out. Like I love debating. I love being challenged, etc. So for anyone that has strong RWA feelings or a thesis, etc., please reach out to me because I want to figure out sort of deeply where to position. But generally, I'm skeptical about people's sophistication of going to say go get like oil exposure, or like these nascent like oil well exposure, or these nascent like asset classes,
Yep.
and go own the specific asset. Like I don't think people are really taking their portfolio and saying like I want futures on wheat prices going down or something, so I'm going to own this asset, etc. So from that perspective, if it's like retail RWAs, I'm just sort of
Right.
bearish on that. But generally
Yeah.
RWAs, I don't see why you wouldn't have these assets on chain at some point. So
100%. And what I love that's happening is obviously, I was a kid of the 80s. So you'd have the
yeah,
card collection
yeah,
and
okay,
you pull out the
yeah,
card. And if you were smart
hmm,
enough, you'd actually have them, in
yeah,
the protective casing. But
yeah,
to actually have your assets in a Web2 friendly experience, and being able to then claim it and have it mailed to you is
yeah,
a pretty cool, right? So you can either have the physical or you can have the digital. You burn the digital, you get the physical. So on a collector standpoint, where people are moving away from their dollars and they're kind of diversifying, I think RWA in that context is cool. But I think from a bigger thing, when you're talking about wheat and other actual physical items, I don't know if they would send wheat barrels to your home. That would be interesting.
yeah,
Um, you know, I think we've covered quite a bit, and I could probably
yeah,
speak to you for at least another few hours on all of this. I invite people to go and follow you, engage with you. We'll be
sure,
cutting up some of this clip content. I love what
yeah,
Redbeard Ventures is doing. I love what Denari Labs is doing, and I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and giving an hour of your time today. I really do
of
appreciate it.
course. Of course, that was wonderful. And like I said, we're growing on the Twitter side. So I have about 9,000 or so connections on LinkedIn. I was a LinkedIn guy early in my career because I was coming out of TradFi, etc. I'm investing a lot of time on the Twitter side, so folks will be seeing more of me coming up, and I'm gonna
I
keep
love
going.
it. I love it. Well, thank you. Thanks so much for coming on, and let's continue the dialogue in another episode.
Okay, awesome.